His idea was, since there's actually, I believe, only around 10 million people that are uninsured, I don't know if that number's right, but the idea was, the point was, maybe when folks enter the medical community, volunteerism is a big part of what makes America great, and maybe they could sign up for some pro bono work, maybe even get a tax break for doing that work, but maybe that's a way the community could work together to help solve some of the problems.
Thank you, and I think that's a good thing to look at, to encourage people to give a pro bono and be able to get a credit for it. Yes?
Okay, first because Obama has a huge majority in both houses of Congress, and because it's obvious at this point that the Republicans are going to vote as a bloc against any health care plan the Democrats bring up. And third, because when you guys were in control of Congress, nothing the Democrats did ever got through. Why in the hell does Obama care what the Republicans think?
Well, that's basically what the president said to us.
Unfortunately, that's not true.
Just a couple weeks after he was elected, he came and spoke to all of us as a Republican conference, and he spoke for about 40 minutes, and we felt very good after, and it was a give and take. It was, we'd ask questions, and I'll tell you, the president is every bit as good, if not better, in person than you see him on television. He is very up on the issues. He knew what our issues were when our questions were asked. You could tell that he was aware of them, he related to them. And we thought, gee, this perhaps is a president we can work with. 3 days later, he made a comment that we won the election. We being his party. So we're seeing exactly that. They have 76 votes in the House. They can vote out anything they want. They don't need any of our votes. They have a filibuster-proof 20-vote margin in the Senate. We never had that when we were in power. That's why we couldn't get a lot of legislation through. But so they can basically pass anything they want to pass. The only reason they don't pass this, that will result in this, is because of you. Because of town hall meetings like you all over the place.
First, I'd like to thank you for coming and being here today. And I'm sure that everyone here, no matter which side you're on, we all want what's best for the American people. And we just have different solutions to the problems. I've lived in foreign countries, and I have personally experienced health care in countries that have nationalized medicine. And it's something that I wouldn't want to wish on my worst enemy. One of my cousins in Norway now has been waiting 1.5 years to see a cancer specialist. She has a brain tumor. She has terrible headaches constantly. She's gone blind, and she has to live with her sister. She's waited 1.5 years to see the cancer specialist in Oslo. I think another lady that I spoke to while we were waiting, she used to do medical billing, and she said 20% of the billing that she did was for Canadians. Now, I don't understand, unless they don't want to wait and they're coming here. We all want to improve our health care one way or another, but let's not make things worse by jumping into the water without knowing what we're doing.
That pretty well states the concern. 1.5 years waiting, your relative in Oslo and Norway, and you know, those are what I hear all the time coming out of Canada. Usually the line is, I hear 3 to 4 months to 1 year, or a little over is what I hear from Canada, but it's 1.5 years for something like cancer, which you need to get to right away.
Hi, thank you. I've been a healthcare professional for 40 years, and I too am very upset with the administration's plan for trying to improve our health care. Here is the current report card on our country as a healthcare provider. We currently are #1 in spending. We spend, by the World Health Organization and the UN, we are rated 38 in performance. And these figures may be fine if you're worried about, if it's thinking of World Cup soccer, but this is public health. And the reason I am upset with Obama's health care plan is that it doesn't go far enough. Why are we the only industrial country in the world that does not have a national health care plan? I would rather wait in a long line than to wait in a homeless camp, and that's where our country's headed. This is the only solution, single payer, Medicare for all. We can't afford it. I'd rather the government run my health care plan than the private one.
You know, it's interesting what's taking place in the world. Most of the world did go to a one-payer system. And it's interesting what we see happening, like the UK. Well, first of all, let's go to Canada. Because it doesn't work, because there's rationing, because there isn't enough there, because the government runs out of money, because the costs go through the ceilings, Canada has an easy out. Their people come to the United States and get the care that needed. What we see happening now in the UK, in France, and many of these now, they're not next to the United States, so they are setting up, this is new, relatively new, I mean in the last some years, it wasn't that way to begin with, they're getting a private system going along with it. So that when you don't get it, in the single payer at least, and you're waiting for a year and a half, as this one lady mentioned, you can go into the private system. So we see the rest of the world moving away from this, something that didn't work at a time when our president and many of us are trying to move it into it. And I think that is an incredible mistake and an incredible threat to our democracy and to our freedom.
I've never been to a town hall meeting, but I do appreciate your phone town hall meetings. They work very well.
We've had 3 teletown halls. I don't know if any of you have had calls on them, but on this is our 3rd public one. So thank you. I'm glad you like it.
I am a new acting CEO and partial owner of a 26-year-old manufacturing facility here in Chico. We employ 58 hardworking taxpayers. We at one time had as many as 115, but through the economic changes, we've had to do some layoffs. I read somewhere that each one of those hardworking employees is covering 7 other people that aren't. And what I'm worried that if we continue to put these new social engineering experiments like nationalized healthcare, cap and trade, that it won't stop at just covering 7 other people for 1 employee. I have a lot of concerns for my employee, but my main one today is concerned about the elected representatives not reading the bills that they are to vote upon. My suggestion is that our representatives stop making the bills so long and with such legalese that no one can understand them. I would like to know if you would be willing, Congressman Herger, to go back to Washington and begin legislation on requiring that every bill have a certain amount of waiting period sufficient to the time it would take to read the bill.
Obama promised 5 days.
The elected representatives read it, not the staff members, and that they do that before they vote on it.
Absolutely. Doesn't that sound like a given? I mean, something as simple as reading the legislation. Now, I know we probably have some speed readers here, but 1,100 pages, you get it at midnight or get it late that night, and 300 pages more. There isn't anyone who had read this legislation before us. But the bottom line is, that is a given, you would think. And it's interesting, President Obama actually said that's what he was pushing for, that we'd be able to have at least, I believe it was 3 or 4 days minimum, to be able to look at something before we voted on it. And yet, we're not seeing that now, but again, that is a given. And not only that we're able to read it, and even if we read it, this is complicated stuff.